right. Looks like we are live. Alrighty. Now, real quick, let me post about it. I'm sorry it's gonna take a second. I know, ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah. I know. Give me just 1 second. I'll post on my Discord and we will get on with it. Which, by the way, here it is. All right. Posted. Now, I hope you guys can hear me. Supposed to, at least, based on what I'm seeing on my OBS. All right, so quite an eventful yet uneventful day for some. Hello. Two beautiful legends. Good to see you. All right, so you guys know what time it is. We are now gonna go into the technical of things. We're gonna keep it short and sweet today because we don't have a lot of time. We have about 20 minutes before today's session is over with, and so we're basically gonna be looking into the following sessions, the sort of next sessions throughout the week, and we're mostly gonna be looking into next month because this month basically has just, well, today's all over with. Just have post-market, tomorrow's pre-market, and we have 29th. So basically have just 4 more days. I'm actually wrong. Okay. Sorry for underestimating this month. We still have 4 more days. We have the 31st of July as well this month. So yeah, we're very right. So absolutely. So we still have 4 days, not of course including today. I think today's session could be summed up quite easily, at least with the directionality we have right now, given this current channel, given the upwards momentum that we're having on a 1 minute. So it's very likely for us to see more of an upswing still before the market sort of ends today's session. And so we're kind of on our way there, given how we have about 19 minutes. I'm not going to be surprised if we're going to be seeing something more in line with that notion throughout the larger time frames. 5 minutes really shows that it's going to break back down. We're kind of showing that teeter-tatter, that back and forth within the framework of the current channel. Nothing all that surprising. 30 minutes does confirm that notion that the market still has a little bit of an upswing. For today, we had quite a move down. We had a bit of a sort of over the weekend, a bit of a gap generated. And then we had seen the market sort of fill it in. Of course, all in all, if you pay attention, we were retesting again a very well-known level that I've acknowledged and spoke about literally in the previous call I had right here on YouTube and on my community calls and so on. We've mentioned it quite a bit. It's 7,384.45. That's the very same support level we're residing or revolving around, very similarly to how we had it right here. Of course, the acknowledgement oftentimes happens through both sides, on the top and on the bottom, so it's not going to be all that surprising to see if the price action will kind of move into that wedge. All in all, will still result in us moving towards this level right here, which is the average channel, the actual average support, well, in this case, support level of the channel that was generated, basically this sideways channel that you're seeing on the screen right now, this red and black channel, the wider one we've been moving within the framework of, kind of moving back and forth so you can see what I'm all about, what I'm talking all about here. So 45 minutes, and Nasdaq had moved some movement today. I don't have to say, but you know, they move basically in tandem, and so what we saw is probably very similar one to the other. It's not all that different, of course, within the relative framework of the price ranges. It will feel like Nasdaq sometimes moves more than that relative move. It just simply is has a wider range, and so thus ends up moving sometimes a little bit more to what the SPX does. I wouldn't call it anything abnormal. Remember, they still revolve one around the other, so to speak. They still move within the same framework of the very same cycle. Of course, those who don't know, you can join my community, and I teach all these things one-on-one. I teach all the technical facets and aspects of how to analyze the charts properly and understand what is the cycle all about, what brings it about, what is the momentum, where does it sort of how to read it, where does it stem from, what that information is indicative of given the current position we have, whether it is within the structure of the support and resistance levels, whether it's within the structure of the cycle, which plays a arguably the major role in all of this. And if you don't know about it, it's like trying to watch a movie on a foreign language you don't speak. So the 4 hourly, really, you know what, let's just retrace back. I feel like I skipped over real quick. 45 minutes right here, 30 minutes we said is a little bit more bullish. 45 minutes still does look a little bit more bullish, and we're around that 50 range, so we're kind of in neutral territory. Arguably, we can say that we haven't really done all that much. We started around here and we're closing around here. We're pretty much stayed within the same framework of that channel. We've been moving downwards, although we did it with the gap, with this movement up to the upside. All in all, we haven't really done anything today, but what people are blind to is this process is almost like this moral story about the frog being cooked, or the crab, or whichever one you're familiar with. The bottom line is that major changes, in fact, if you look back a couple of months ago, saying, guys, we're going to go through this process. If you look at the similarity of what the market is like with the overall sort of standard bell curve structure, it has a lot of similarities, really. And this is what I was warning about. Really, we never are fully sure what is going to be the attitude or the full directionality of this. It could have ended up being a lot flatter, staying within the framework of the wedge as it is right now, kind of. At the end of the day, there are processes that most people are blind to because they're not familiar with these processes nor understand that they happen behind the scenes. And it was a warning, and it felt like, oh, I mean, a couple of months, Greg, oh, it's so slow. Yes, but slowly but surely, these couple of months went by and time went by, and guess what? Exactly as I said, we basically moved within that framework sideways, if you will, almost this narrow wedge-like channel, a funnel that we're moving towards. And once we start looking at the broader time frames, we realize we in fact are quite bearish, although we're having a bit of a relief rally, a temporary correction, if you will. We are in bearish territory. We are bullish dominant objectively right now if we're looking at the 4 hours, for example. And so we are presuming that there could be some form of a correction, maybe, that will try and fill in some leftover gaps that we have left before, whether it's today's gap, whether it's the gap before that we have all the way at 7,533.76. So there's quite a lot up there that could be filled in before we have that initial drop. In fact, even that movement higher towards 7,533, of course, will be touted by everyone as look to the moon and all that beautiful stuff, without really paying attention and realizing that it's just another lower high that is quite indicative of a major breakdown and the pull downwards. Now, why do we even think this entire thing will culminate and will end up being a downtrend? Well, once you start expanding into the larger time frames where things are more indicative of the flow for the following days, not just mere hours and small portions of a following session, but in fact, if we're looking at the daily, we're looking several days ahead. Given how we're bearish dominant on the grand scheme of things, we're in oversold territory. Yes, it is indicative, and sometimes it is sort of the point where direction changes and then we flip over. In fact, arguably we will see more bullish corrective movements within that framework. But right now, as it stands for this current moment on the daily scale, looking into the following sessions, we're currently bearish and are going to become even more so. How do we know that? Because of the divergence. The two forces, the K and the D, are not implying on a crossover, and so the longer this sort of this margin will stay as is, arguably we will remain bearish dominant. At some point, of course, the two forces will converge, at which point, to determine whether we're still bearish or bullish, we're going to have to look into our weekly. And those who don't know, our weekly is extremely bearish and have been so, and becoming even more and more bearish, as I was warning, sort of touting and ringing the alarm bells for the broader drop down that we're going to have in the following months ahead of us. Now, before we see that sort of print in the monthly scale, we got to see how the momentum slowly overturns. You obviously can't argue with me that this trend and this, well, just this trend sort of, right, is the same as this current movement that we're having. You can't argue it's the same directionality. And so this means, to me at least, that we are sort of losing our bullish momentum. And the question becomes whether we're gonna explode back up into the upper side of the channel, or are we gonna break down, as Greg, well, as I was saying for quite some time, and generate this harmonic pattern, which is very well known as a head and shoulders pattern. Given the current structure, our left shoulder right here will have our equal right here, the head and all that. How do we know that? Well, we have our hands already within the weekly framework, which will expand and will of course spill over, and will the more aggressive that weekly bearish momentum is, the more it is aggressive on how it spills over into our monthly. Basically, the more aggressively it spills over into our monthly, the more likely and more expected this momentum will print on that larger time frame, which is indicative of a longer duration cycle or trend within itself. So if we're looking at the monthly, something I've been warning, and within very short period of time, I will be saying I told you so. And so right now, that transition from a distinctive uptrend now to a distinctive downtrend, right? Just let's clear things up so you guys can see better without all that unnecessary stuff. So as I was saying just earlier, on a smaller time frame, right here, it's quite clear and indicative that we have changed and transitioned from an uptrend into, at least temporarily, what looks to be a downtrend. And arguably, I would say that this still was corrective. If you look down here, you'll realize that, wait, but Greg, we were bullish all along. Yes, bullish, but in neutral territory, meaning we never got overbought. And so this is more of a corrective, a mixed type of behavior. Sideways, exactly what I've been touting and saying, that don't expect really any bullish price action when you see the momentum being bullish in bearish zone, in bearish territory, in oversold territory, below the 50, below the 20. Usually we'll get something more akin to this, something more of a sideways like price action. And as we're entering next month, within 4 days, literally, that will probably mean that that bearish momentum that we will see right now being generated throughout the following week, as we see it sort of expands and expands and expands. Right now we're kind of peaking out, or at least close to the momentum we had. Maybe, as we said, a little bit more upwards movement, but you see that back and forth is exactly that ebb and flow that the vastness of the market are being swayed by and misled by. And arguably, we here are data-driven community. We analyze technical facets, how the numbers look like on a chart, not what our gut feeling is telling us. And so if we're looking objectively at momentum as it stands, even though we understand there could be some portion of a correction here, temporarily so, it still looks like we're on a broader scheme of things moving in a broader downtrend right now. As you can see it right here, that blue and red channel, it is quite accurately have been retained for at least some time now. Of course, we have some slippage and spillover out of the channel. They never are fully perfect, but this is as close to perfect as we can get, right? As close as we can get to accurate. And so it seems that our end, of course, we already tested the highs of the current channel, and so it's very far more likely for us to test this bottom and maybe sure retest another high again, which will have an uptrend in it, exactly as we were saying earlier, that there could be some corrections within the framework of a general downtrend. Now, that general downtrend, as we're saying, in my humble opinion, will culminate, as already shown before many times. You can see kind of that direction. As you can see, we have a major head and shoulders on the screen right now. My expectation is basically to see this sort of structure, even though I expected it to play out earlier. We're basically expecting the price action to drop roughly, at least I am, given my analysis, given my humble opinion, given everything I see, I expect the price action to drop roughly to 6,000, 6,100-ish. It does not mean it's going to happen tomorrow as you wake up, not even before the month ends. In fact, this is the current structure is indicative that the following months will be exactly doing that process. We'll be moving downwards towards 6,100, 6,000, and maybe slightly below it. As you know, as you can imagine, revolving around 6,000 on its own necessarily means we will be dropping below it and testing it as a level, revolving around it, if you will. So not a lot really has changed. The only thing that has happened today is that we're seeing again far more of an indication of retesting towards the lows of the current broader channel we're testing, which those of you who don't know, the lows are roughly around 7,312.63. Again, roughly, doesn't mean precisely. In fact, arguably so. I would say the actual support level is sitting at 7,320-ish. That's going to be a little bit more accurate, kind of that median range, that tool that we use that calculates the current median channel for us, the accurate fair value channel, and derives averages out of all the data points, and thus we get a very accurate structure within which the framework is moving, or potentially can, even though, as you can see, we've been building this downwards or funnel-like structure for some time now. There are more so major support resistance levels that play more of a major role, like so you can see, and of course levels that play out more when we spill or slip out. Those are the extremes of the current true range average level we're moving within the framework of. Pardon me for my voice, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, it is towards the end of the day and my voice is not doing me any justice. Forgive me for that. Now, so as we've been saying basically on the weekly, and I've been touting and warning, as you can see, with this sort of very obvious arrow. I've been talking about these things with my community, teaching my students to be their own analyst, independent thinkers who can truly understand and see the signs, and they were actually, some of them were able to, I know, capitalize on oil recently, on the oil related movement, and arguably so. Of course, we said most likely this entire thing will continue, will perpetuate, and will become far worse as the war with Iran becomes worse and worse and worse and worse. Unfortunately, again, even myself being at Israel and, so being so close to the front lines, so to speak, I can't tell you that the media nor any government right now is telling us the full story or being honest with us. It's a simple equation of they cannot tell the opponent a misleading story for a strategic reason while telling us the truth. They have to mislead everyone for the opponent to actually believe that the story is true. And so whether it's divisiveness, whether it's weakness, military weakness, for geopolitical weakness, none of, it's all bullshit and just narrative, if you ask me, and what brings the ratings to the news channels. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're all very intelligent, and I would arguably say just ignore all that crap. Pardon me. Keep your eyes on the prize. Pay attention to the stock market price action, what is it is indicative of. Join my community. The address is right there, patreon.com/Greg_Re_H. That's your ticket into becoming truly independent. This is how you become your own analyst instead of just listening to all the news broadcasts that are keep telling you all sorts of back and forth bullshit that I understand it's very confusing. In fact, I myself would have been confused if I didn't know as much as I do and understand the market as well as I do. So if you want to become one of those knowledgeable people instead of just sort of sitting on the sidelines and missing up on all the valuable price action that is actually happening, and I would arguably say that you, ladies and gents, missing out on one simple equation, and that's technical analysis. And that is arguably the fundamental language of the market. Is, like I said, it's like trying to watch a movie on a foreign language you don't speak. So you definitely want to become one of those people who are able to use these technical tools just like I am day to day to understand and notice the alarm bells. And I know some people are, trying to sort of convince themselves of, don't worry, you've seen this before many times, blah, blah, blah. Or the market still ends up going higher at the end of the day. Well, the conditions are different and the place in the cycles are very different. And you can't judge that if you don't know about these conditions. You can't sort of, be scared of a jungle animal that does not look scary if you don't know that it is actually very dangerous. In fact, this current place in the cycle is very dangerous because it's so misleading and people are buying into the trap. I've been warning months in advance ahead of this whole scenario playing out exactly like a trap, and people are being misled into the slaughter. So don't be one of those. Join my community. Join my one-on-one academy where I literally am going to teach you how to be, like I said, an independent analyst, and understand that what I'm saying is not something that serves me by any means, or am I being biased? I'm merely an interpreter for the market, and I'm presenting what is out there as is. And if you ignore that, is the same thing as me saying 5 + 5 = 10, and you're saying not in my book, not in my head, and ignoring it because it doesn't suit your wants or needs or whatever. Of course, those who expect, to wake up tomorrow and see the market crash, it can actually happen. Don't get me wrong. I can't actually tell you the precise second when it's going to happen, but I can tell you that we are extremely close to the event of the market starting to drop faster and faster and faster, lower and lower and lower. Of course, it'll be a gradual drop. It's not going to happen within the framework of a day or so. In fact, as we see, for example, if we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks to get from low to high in this instance. Since we're going slightly lower, and of course, then we've had this movement is going to be shorter in relativity to the movement we have, and with some slippage and momentum as it's going to play out. In fact, it can still play out a lot faster, even though that took a couple of months just to get higher to that low to that high. In fact, arguably, this can happen within the framework of a handful of weeks, really quickly. We know we drop a lot faster than we climb, simply because most of the people in the market don't really know how to read technical analysis, don't know how to read the charts, and so just kind of opt for running out very quickly, and fear is a lot stronger than building up confidence very slowly. That's just naturally how we humans are building, our psyche is. That's it, ladies and gents. That's all I wanted to bring to you. If you don't mind, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget, of course, to comment your opinions down below in the comment section. All the links are in the description below and all that great stuff. Subscription link is up there. Yeah, Patreon, all that great stuff. This is where you get sort of your access to the Discord. Patreon itself is merely a tool to access the Discord where all the action takes place, meetings, information, and all of the above that I talk about and I mention and refer to my community. That is my community. Don't miss out before the market starts dropping and then you're completely at a loss and don't understand where the market is headed and what is going on. Alrighty, ladies and gents, I love you all. I'll see you on the next one, which is probably going to happen either tomorrow or the following days as this tsunami wave downwards unravels, and I will be sort of guiding those who want to follow through the process. Love you all. You'll have a